Welcome to The Author Show, where we present new authors and books. From fiction to self-help and everything in between, you'll find it all here. To watch the TV version of our program, visit authorswebtv.com. That's authorswebtv.com. And now, let the show begin.
Hi, this is Linda Thompson, your host for The Author Show. Our book is titled Cold Currents, a Bobby Taylor novel by guest Byron Suggs. Bobby Taylor has a lot to tell about his family, his work as a police detective, and a killer that returns after many years. Cold Currents, those two words are so much more than the title of this novel, and I can't wait to learn more. Byron, welcome to The Author Show.
Thank you for having me, Linda.
Byron, please give us a quick synopsis of Cold Currents.
Sure, Linda. The story opens with Detective Bobby Taylor returning to his hometown at his aging mother's request after a 20-year absence. Confronting with his father's alcoholism and his own dark past, he's stunned when a missing girl's head turns up on the banks of the Wild Moose River. Stunned because the details of the murder match the case his dead brother was tried and convicted of some 30 years earlier. So, desperate to clear his family's name and stop a resurrected killer, Bobby sets out to unravel a mystery that spans 30 years and 2 continents. With the help of a reluctant chief of detectives and a resilient female reporter, he soon discovers the terrible secrets of the past beneath the river's swift, cold currents.
You left me speechless at finding a head. I have a feeling this is going to be an interesting conversation. So, was there any specific incident or time in your life that inspired Detective Taylor's story?
Not really. I've always been fascinated with history of the region. And one day I was on the river and I was just looking and I thought, there's probably a lot of stories here. And I don't know, maybe it's just the gruesome side of me, but I sat down one day and I started writing, and that was the first scene I wrote was the opening scene for that. And it just went from there.
So it's easy for you to write about heads with missing bodies.
It's easy to write about life, and things happen in real life that we don't particularly like. But sometimes that rivets us to a tale or a story in ways that other things don't.
I have to agree with that because your story is the kind of story that keeps me up all night wanting to know what happens to the very end. So how would you describe your writing style?
I'm old school when it comes to writing. I don't believe in tricks or gimmicks. I don't believe in trying to reach a specific word count every day or outlining a book in advance. A character will form in my mind over time, then a loose story concept, and then an opening scene. Once I'm satisfied that the opening is strong, I sit down to write and let the characters take the wheel. I try to keep the pacing quick, and occasionally I have to put my 2 cents worth in, but you get the idea, right?
If you were writing a novel introducing Bobby Taylor and Cold Currents, what would your headline be?
Flawed, strong-willed Southern police detective.
I would want to read that article. So while writing Cold Currents, were you thinking of any specific type of reader?
Well, not really. I just wanted to write a good book, one that would take you through a range of emotions and keep you turning the page, and leave you satisfied and wanting more after the final word. And that's basically all I had in mind. It was more about the story, the readers come after, and hopefully they fall in love with it as much as I did.
The title of your book implies that Bobby will be returning to us in a sequel or a series, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I'm currently working on the follow-up in that series, Book 2, which is called The Layers Beneath, and hopefully that will be out by the end of this year.
And how many are you planning for Detective Bobby Taylor?
Originally, when we pitched this book, it was for a 3-book series, but quite frankly, I'm open to taking it as far as my imagination can take it. I'm a big fan of James Lee Burke and some of the other authors in that style. And as you know, some of his characters have gone for many, many years, so we just have to wait and see.
Are your characters strictly from your imagination, or are they based on people you know?
Well, I think all writers will tell you that you cannot create an original character. Every character is bits and pieces of people you've known, other characters you've known, other characters you've written about. There's no truly original character. So I would have to say yes to that question. It probably has a little bit of everybody in it, especially the writer. I think to make a character very strong, the writer has to be very familiar with certain aspects of their characters. To tell you the truth, there's a little bit of me and Bobby Taylor. I'd want to get out there in a Mustang and leave marks all over the road too as I'm shooting out the back window.
That sounds like fun.
One day maybe I'll find out.
So when Bobby Taylor goes back to his hometown and he finds this bodiless head, he went back at the request of his mother or his father, and his mother's dying. Is that correct?
Actually, no, neither one of them are dying. His father used to be a police detective, and the case that comes out later in the book is one that he is affected by greatly. And he has kind of spiraled down into a bit of alcoholism, and at their age, his mother's very distraught. And there's some estrangement there between Bobby and his father, and so when he returns home, it's one of the first things he has to deal with. His personal demons are as challenging as the ones that he hunts on the street. So that's kind of what brings him home in the first place, and everything just kind of explodes after that.
Will he stay in his hometown throughout the series?
I can assure you that he will be drawn back, and he will stay, as far as I know right now.
Byron, I love the bold covers on your book cover. What was your idea behind that?
That's an interesting story, Linda. I actually commissioned that cover to a book designer. And after about 2 weeks of trying to come up with ideas, there were a couple of times where they were close, but they weren't close enough. So kind of at a crossroads and wanting to get this cover out and done, I took my cell phone down to the river one day, the actual river where this book occurs. And I walked along the river and came to a bridge that goes over the river. And I sat there and took about 25 pictures with my phone. And I took one of those pictures and I sent that picture to the designer, and I said, this is kind of what I want, but let me show you my vision. So I took the picture and put it into a Photoshop program and kind of just added some very childish colors around just to kind of say, this is where I want this hue and this is how I want this to look. And then I sent it to her, and when she came back with she was astonished that I'd done that. But when it was done, she had smoothed all the edges, and basically the cover you're looking at was from a picture I took off a bridge over the actual river that's in the book.
What a phenomenal story. So congratulations on being an artist as well. Is there any other book that we might compare with Cold Currents?
Well, I had one reader to kind of compare it to maybe some of James Lee Burke's works. I don't know of a specific book, and I can't recall the name now of the one she was talking about, but it's kind of along those lines. The writing is very tight, although in some places it tends to paint a very beautiful picture of some of the surroundings and settings. But I try to keep the writing very tight, so I can't put it to one specific book, but if you're kind of along those lines in the Burke or the John Hart or any of those authors like that, you'll probably feel very comfortable with this book.
Well, you mentioned feedback, so can you share with us some of the feedback you've received by readers of Cold Currents?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's been very positive. It's been very positive. And just off topic a minute, my last agent, I actually got her after I spent 2 years with another agency, and she loved it enough to wait for 2 years to actually represent me again. But most of the readers have come back and said they couldn't put it down. It kept them up late into the night when they should have been in bed. They loved the beginning, they loved the end, they loved the pace of the book. Pretty much everything I've heard all kinds of things, and they've all been very, very positive.
Do you have a writer's group or a group of beta reader friends that take a look at your chapters and provide feedback before you send it to your publisher?
Well, actually, no, I don't have a specific set. I will go out and try to get fresh eyes. Usually it's not the same people. I don't usually send out chapters or anything that's not complete. I'm a little protective in that way. I like to finish the work and then get feedback on the whole thing, because to me, it's an embodiment of a story, and I need to know that it works from beginning to end. So sending it out one chapter at a time doesn't really tell me a lot. So that's kind of how I work. Once the book is finished, then I send it out to certain people or find certain beta readers, usually fresh eyes. So that's how I do that.
I think we've defined you as a storyteller. So do you take your book and go to the libraries or book clubs and do readings at bookstores and just talk about Bobby Taylor?
Yes, I do. In fact, the town at which this story occurs, I've actually done several book signings at the library. We have a good relationship there, and I usually donate several copies of my book to the local libraries, and I'm always open to book clubs that want to invite me to talk about the books or to do a reading or anything. I love to get out there and just talk about reading in general and my books if they want to talk about it or anything else like that. But yes, I've done book signings in stores, and I love to talk to people about the stories and just about their love for reading.
What is it about Cold Currents that makes it stand out in a crowd?
I would say it's a doggone good book, and I think people know it, and I'm not sure if it actually stands out amongst hundreds of thousands that come out every year. As far as visually, I would hope the cover will draw somebody in, but I think the best thing about the book is it draws you in at the beginning, it keeps you on the edge of your seat all the way through, and I think and I hope that it satisfies you when you close the back cover.
I don't know of an author that would ask for much of anything more than that, so good for you. Reading your book synopsis, it seems that there are some pretty graphic sequences in this book. Would it be appropriate reading for a teen or a young adult?
I would think that, say, a teen 16 and older could very well grasp these things and not be shocked or disturbed in any way. In my writing, I try to relay the depth and the urgency of the scene without a lot of gruesomeness and gratuitous blood and gore or anything. I mean, it's just very simply, if you've got a dismembered head, it's just that. It's a dismembered head. I mean, there's no need to go into it in any depth. I think the scene around it should have the depth to it to draw you in. So I wouldn't say there's a lot of blood and gore in these books. So anybody, say 16 and above, could probably handle this. Below that, I wouldn't recommend it.
When you're writing about a police detective and all of the things that he's going through to solve this crime, what type of research did you do, or have you been in Bobby Taylor's shoes?
Oh, no, I haven't been in his shoes yet. Maybe one day. I do a little bit of it just depends on the scene I'm writing. Some of it's just kind of common knowledge, just through a gathering of knowledge over years. You watch detective shows, they can't be extremely accurate, but there are certain procedures in law enforcement that have to be followed, and I do a lot of research on the internet when I need something for a particular scene. I do have some friends that were involved in the court system, so if I need something specific, I might go to them and lay out this scenario and say, is this possible? Is this something that might happen? Could it happen, or would it never happen? Kind of in that way. I don't get really heavy into it, but if somebody comes back and says, they could never do that, and I'm like, well, you prove to me they could never ever do that, and I'll change it. But otherwise, this is fiction, and we do get to stretch it just a bit. And if it makes the reading more enjoyable and takes the reader away, then I'll leave it in. But as far as research goes, I kind of do it as I go.
Is there a particular message that you'd like your readers to remember about Bobby and Cold Currents?
Probably just that, we're all human, and we do see atrocities throughout our lives, and we have to be able to cope with that and to move forward and to change and become stronger in the end. And we're all flawed, but we can all find that good life, and we can do it amidst all the bad things that surround us.
Where can we learn more about you, about your other books, and where can we purchase Cold Currents, a Bobby Taylor mystery?
You can find out more about me at my website, ByronSuggs.com. That's one word, ByronSuggs.com. And on there you can find out more about me, and you can order my books through the site. And I also have a blog on WordPress. It's at byronsuggs.wordpress.com. I do go there occasionally and kind of spill my heart out, so you'll probably find out more personal things from me on my blog. But both of those sites, you can find out more about me and how to order my books.
In the minute or so that we have left, will you share with our listeners something that we haven't talked about Cold Currents and Bobby Taylor, that you would like them to realize and perhaps be an incentive for them to purchase and read it?
I really can't think of anything like that, except that Cold Currents touches very humanistic aspect of everyone. And I think if you want to feel good at the end of a book, you'll be able to do it with Cold Currents. There's a lot of relationships that are dealt with in this book. There's a lot of things that are resolved from the past. There's a lot of feeling in this book. Yet it still moves and it still grips you and takes you on a wonderful ride, I think. And I would just hope people would give it a chance and go out there and just give it a read and enjoy it. I'm glad you did.
Byron, I've really enjoyed talking with you today. You've written my kind of book, and it's something I'm going to enjoy getting into. Thank you for talking with us today and for sharing Bobby's story in Cold Currents. Will you please come back again and chat with us when you release your next Bobby Taylor book?
I would love to do that, Linda. Thank you for having me again.
I love this book. The characters Byron Suggs brings to life are incredible. I could feel every emotion in every way possible. I couldn't put it down, even at 4 a.m. when I should have been sleeping. Cold Currents is funny, suspenseful, scary, and it pulls on your heartstrings. It drew me in from page 1 and held me till the very end. I would definitely recommend this to anyone who loves suspense with a lot of twists. A good review is always a positive way to close out our show, and this was a very good review. Please visit theauthorshow.com to listen to other featured authors. These interviews are available to book buyers worldwide on demand every day, 24/7. If you have written a book and would like to be a guest on the show, visit theauthorshow.com, complete the interview request form, and we will contact you shortly thereafter. The Author Show is a great way to market your book by getting in front of your target audience with a high-quality interview that will make a real impact. Join us again for another great book and another exciting author on The Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. To contact us, call toll-free 1-877-955-8800. That's 877-55-8800. Or visit theauthorshow.com, theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.